NBC News reporter Alex Seitzwald writes tonight, Joe Biden is launching a new political action committee Thursday that will keep him involved in elections and on the minds of fellow Democrats, potentially helping to lay the groundwork for another presidential bid in 2020.
So Joe Biden, the former vice president and everyone's favorite third or fourth choice for president, is he running in 2020? Now, he has just launched a PAC, which would certainly make it seem like he's on the way to try and raising money for a run in 2020. So I'm going to break this down into two parts. First part, should Joe Biden run? Now, the answer to that question really depends on what should means, because people tend to not run for president unless they think they have a shot at winning. Generally that's the case. At least you imagine in their mind they're running because they can picture themselves winning, whether it seems realistic or not. In Joe Biden's case, he's the most likely establishment pick to win a primary. And look, I know Joe Biden he's not Hillary Clinton level establishment or corporate Democrat, whatever you want to call it, neoliberal. He's not that bad, but he is ingrained in this system. I mean, right off the bat, he's launching a PAC, which is the complete opposite of what Bernie Sanders would do. Bernie Sanders raised small donations, didn't use super PAC money at all, raised individual contributions, and that's how he ran for president. And he did that to show the fact that money in politics is a serious issue. And if you want to actually gain people's trust that you'll do something about it, then you're going to run outside that existing system. And that's what Bernie did. And that's not what Joe Biden's doing. So Joe Biden is already, if he's running for president, he's going the typical route. He's launching a PAC, he's raising money from big donors, and he's going to try and use his folksy behavior to try and win over voters. And it's a strategy that may have worked 8 years ago or 4 years ago. I don't think it's a strategy that's going to work in 2020. People are dying for someone who is not the typical politician. And that, in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, is why Donald Trump became president. Despite all the crap that came out of his mouth, Donald Trump was not the typical politician. He appeared like an outsider. So a lot of people came out to vote for him because they wanted the system to be shaken up. And that's also a big part of the reason that Bernie Sanders became so popular, because he is not a Democrat or Republican. He's an independent. And even though he caucuses with the Democrats, he still is an independent force. He's not tied to their big donor money. He's not tied to Nancy Pelosi. He's not tied to neoliberals or corporate Democrats. He's his own person. And the fact that he's an independent, combined with him not using a super PAC and instead raising individual donations, that was a big reason for his rise. In addition, of course, to his progressive policies. So the answer to should Joe Biden run is really inconclusive, because it leads to the next question. Can Joe Biden win? And the answer to that, in my opinion, is a clear no. In fact, I think the only way that Joe Biden would win is if he only went up against Martin O'Malley. If Martin O'Malley was Joe Biden's only competition, then sure, Joe Biden can win the primaries. But if Joe Biden is going up against possibly Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, Bernie Sanders is only a year older than Joe Biden. So if you think Bernie Sanders is too old to run, then Joe Biden's too old to run. In my opinion, age doesn't matter. They can both run, and maybe they both should run. But if Joe Biden's going to be going up against Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard and Elizabeth Warren, really the only person in this sort of group that is expected to run that I think Joe Biden will do better than is Cory Booker. And I actually could be wrong there. If it's between Cory Booker and Joe Biden, for me, it's sort of a toss-up. I actually think Joe Biden would get the more progressive people in that case, simply because Cory Booker has already been shown to be influenced by big money. But when we have a realistic conversation about how these primaries in 2020 may work out, then we're talking about progressives. And Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard, these are all stronger contenders than Joe Biden. So the only real way that Joe Biden could win against a group like that is if all three of those candidates split the progressive vote and Joe Biden consolidates all of the typical corporate Democratic establishment votes. But I happen to think that it would eventually get to a point where you're going to have a strong progressive and someone who represents the establishment, and the strong progressive is going to far outperform the establishment Democrat. So should Joe Biden run? The answer is only if he doesn't mind losing.